Kakadosh Boker Tov, Shavua Tov, Chodesh Tov. Masechet Ketubot Daf Amud Aleph 53a1. Yeah? So he says over here as follows. Yesterday, on the last stuff we were talking about that of Papa, he made a wedding between his son to the daughter of Abba from the city of Surah. So they went and they wanted to write the ketubah. Right now, he wanted to see how much of the dowry was going to get, meaning that when a girl gets married, the parents have to drop a lot. Yeah, they have to drop a lot of money. Yeah, start saving up. Is that the shame? Yeah, of the girl. Yeah, parents of the girl. It's a dowry. Yeah, big amount. Yeah. So Shama Yehuda bar Merima, right? Yehuda bar Merima comes and he heard that if Papa was coming to Surah. So Nafak, so Yehuda bar Merima, he went out of his house, and he went to see him. So when he got to the house of the Abba Surah, he didn't want to come inside. So Elmaleh, he says, no, come inside. Right? Come inside the house. So this is where we're starting for today's daf. So So Rav Papa understood that Rav Yehuda, right, Yehuda bar Merimar, he didn't want to come into the house. So now why not? So Elmaleh comes and he tells him, what's the reason? Why don't you want to come inside? Is it mishum da amar le Shemuel Rav Yehuda? Is it because that Shemuel told Rav Yehuda, Shirina, sharp one, lo tehave ba'abure achsanta? Never be in a place where they're coming and they're changing the nachalot, meaning there are rules. When are you supposed to receive, or how do you distribute property? Right, the person after 120 or even now, they come, they make a will, testament, right? And now in that will, there are rules. How do they give over the different portions? So is it because that you should never be present at a time that they're changing, right, the rules? Even from a bad son to a good son? Meaning, imagine right now, a person has two children. One of them's a rasha, and one of them's a tzaddik. So comes the father, and the father says, why am I going to give everything to the rasha? He's going to give everything to the tzaddik. Says Shemuel to Rabbi Yehuda, Shinina, sharp one, don't be there. Right? Don't be present at such a place. Why? It's against the rules. Why is it against the rules? You don't know what's going to happen with the children. It could be you're right that this son is a rasha, and the other son is a tzaddik. But the grandson, which means the son of the rasha, might become a tzaddik, and the son of the tzaddik might become a rasha. So since you don't know who's who and what's what, you can't start coming and start changing, right, the rules, right? You shouldn't be present because it's not good. The chol shekin, all the more so that if you cannot change between one child to another child, we're talking about between boys, obviously. So mibra lebarta is going to be the same halacha. That don't be present in a place where they're changing from a boy to a girl. So here too is the same thing, which means that right now, if you're going to come and you're going to be present, maybe you hold that we're giving things to the girl instead of the boy, and you shouldn't really be doing so. So says the Gemara, why? Says Rav Papa, this is also takana derabanan. Why? Right? This is the concept of ketuvah bedin dichrin, that in order people should come and they should jump on the girl in order to get married to her. There was a special halacha, right? That there was a takanat chachamim that they should come and they should do such a thing, which means don't think that this is against the rabbi's will that they're coming and they're giving to the girl more than really technically she shouldn't get anything, right? But she doesn't inherit. But all of a sudden now you're coming and you're giving to the girl so much. Why are you giving to the girl so much? So don't think that the reason why is actually this against chachamim. The opposite. This is takanat chachamim. So why don't you come inside? Come, be present. I understand if I'm going against the halacha, so he tells him, don't be there. Right? Don't be there. Don't be in such a place where they're changing, that instead of dividing it equally between two sons, he's giving everything to the good boy instead of the bad boy. Don't be there. Don't be there in a case where you're giving to the daughters instead of the son, or you're giving your that no. But this is takanat chachamim. This is what you're supposed to be doing. Why? So that people should get married to her. Imagine, right, you'll come and you say, no, right, your daughter's going out. Yeah, how much are you giving her? Wallow, nothing. Keep her. Yeah, keep her. What am I going to take her? Right? You want some flush coming this way, right? And all the people should come and start jumping to get married to her, right? So there's also takanat chachamim. So Elmaleh, so Yehuda bar Merimar comes and he tells Rav Papa, he says, Hanemile midateh. This is only that there's not going to be a pgam if he's doing it mirtzono. Mirtzono means he's doing it from his own will. La nami. Is this true if you're forcing it? Which means like this. you're right. If the father from the goodwill of his heart comes and he says, you know what? He loves his daughter and he wants that everyone gets married to his daughter. So what does he do? Boom. He gives her a big dote, a big dowry. Right? So a nedunya, a good one. So okay, chazaku baruch. So you should be there. But what happens if you're forcing him? I come to the father and I say, no, how much are you giving? Yeah?
Ashkenaz do that.
Yeah, so they're forcing. Yeah, so they're coming, they're forcing it. Right? I'm forcing you. No, how much are you giving? And all of a sudden the guy's like, hey, you know how it is. You know, I don't have reception. Right? All of a sudden they don't have reception.
Not even how much you're giving. They said you have to give me that much.
Okay.
It's even worse.
Yeah. So forcing the father to come and give an amount. You should also be there. Elmaleh says, did I come and tell you to come inside the house and force the father of the girl to give a dowry? Ul velo ta'aseh kamina. I only just told you to come inside. You don't have to force anything. You just be present. Come inside. Right? And let's see. By the way, you should know, this is also technically, it's like a silent form of getting them to give something. Because all of a sudden, you know, all the people are there and they're like, no, how much is he going to give to his daughter? And they're all watching and the guy's like, hey. Yeah, now you're matanatedo. You say quietly. And then now you want to say quietly because they're all watching, you know, like now it comes up. Yeah? Fine. So Elmaleh, so Yehuda Bar Meir coming and tells Rav Papa, Ma'alai didi hainu asiyah. He says, no. The fact that I come inside of the house, that's forcing him to give. Because the fact that I'm there, it means that he has to give much more. So therefore, the fact that I come inside, that's already forcing him. And therefore, I don't want to force him. Right? And that's why I don't want to come inside the house. But that means I'm forcing that he's going to have to give a big amount. And I don't want to do that. Achpie ve'ol. Right? What happened was, Rav Papa forced him to come inside. And he came inside. Ishtik v'yashav. So Yehuda Bar Meir, he came inside and he kept quiet. Savarahu. So therefore, what happened was, Abba Suda thought that Yehuda Bar Meir was quiet. Why? Mirtach ratach, because he was upset that he didn't give a good nedunya to the daughter. So katve lechol my dahavale. So what did he do? He went and he wrote everything that he has to his daughter. Yeah, your Papa was smart. He was a good businessman. Yeah, you know how to do it properly. So what happened? Lesof at the end, right? When he saw that he was still quiet, Elmaleh, he says, Hashtanami no mishtayman. He says, I already gave her everything, and you're still not talking to me. You know, like, what's going on? Yeah, he comes and he tells you, well, you're still not going to talk to me? I gave her everything. Demor. He's swearing in the name of Adoni. Lo shrike midi lenafshai. Shavik. What does shavik means? Shavke. What is shavke? Masechet Tani, Daf Amud Aleph. What does it say there? Shavke. I didn't leave over. Yeah? Why didn't you leave it over until, why did you leave over until Masechet Tani, teacher of Berachot? Right? Shavke. Lo shevike midi lenafshai. I didn't leave over nothing to myself. I have nothing left. Elmaleh comes and he says, Iminai didi, right? If you would have asked me beforehand, afilu hainami de kataft lo nichali. Even that which you wrote at the beginning, it wasn't good for me, right? So, which means
Papa of this young.
Yes, the children are of Papa. The children of Papa.
That's
so what happens?
That was so they have money. All this money.
No. So listen. So what happened was, he comes and he says, if you would have asked me advice before doing anything, I would have told you even not to write that anymore. That's what if you would have asked me advice. But now it's too late. So Elmaleh, he says, so okay, so let me retract. Some people, they come and they say, you know what? I don't want to give you anymore. Why? Because now you made me a face. I don't know what. Sometimes, the rabbi comes, right? And all of a sudden the next day, so he says, you know what? I gave on Rosh Hashanah $25,000, right? Now I don't want to give you a penny. Why? Because the rabbi didn't say good morning to me this thing. Oh, you think you retract. Right? The second you give something, that's it. It's a neder. You can't even do a taran nedarim on it. It doesn't, that's it. So he comes and he says, Elmaleh shavya nafsha chadrana lo kamina. I didn't say that you're going to retract, because once you already said it, you have to stand by your word. Once you did it, you have to stand by your word. So therefore, you can't reject it. That's it. There's nothing what to do. So that's what he would.
But you can give him back, no?
Rabbi Yemar Saba min Rav Nachman. So asks Rabbi Yemar Saba from Rav Nachman, Machra ketubata lebaala. Yesh la ketuva benin dichrin, or en la ketuva benin dichrin. Remember that the woman has ketubah benin dichrin. What is the ketubah benin dichrin? Her ketubah and the dowry and everything that goes to her children. not to another woman's children. Remember, the olden days, they were able to get married to more than one wife. So therefore, even though after 120, when the husband passes away, they divide the properties evenly, but the ketubah, which means the dowry that this wife received, plus her ketubah, let's say he wrote a ketubah of $100,000 or whatever it is, that goes to her children directly. Everything else is split up evenly. But the ketubat benin dichrin goes to only her children. He comes and he says, what happens if the wife sold it to the husband? What does that mean? The wife, she wanted to spend a lot of money. Yeah, so what does she do? She comes and tells the husband, you know what? I have a dowry, right? And I have, right, the ketubah. I'm selling it to you. And you give me cash. Yeah, so I sell it to you. So let's say that the dowry was, whatever it is, $100,000. So sometimes she'll even come and I'll sell it to you 80,000. Give me 80,000. Yeah, he gives her 80,000. Yeah, so she sold it to him. So she sold it to her husband. She could sell it to a third party also, by the way, right? So she could come and she sells it, right? And by selling it, right, what happens is, by the way, it was a business. In the olden days, it was a business. What happened? A woman would come and let's say her ketubah was worth 26,000. So she comes to the guy and she says, you know what, right? Would you buy my ketubah? So now the guy comes and he says, 1 second, this is a business transaction. Why? I'm taking a risk. What's a risk? Right? If she dies first, he gets wallow. He gets nothing. So it has to be that he divorces her or that he dies first. So therefore, the guy comes and he makes a simple calculation. He says, you know what? You want the ketubah. So if the guy's already in his 80s, you understand, and he thinks that the guy's going to die first and she's in her 50s. So he comes and he says, listen, I don't have a big risk. So therefore, what am I going to do? I'll give you 20,000 for the 26. Right? Here's cash up front. And 20 for 26.
They're doing it today for a policy.
Policies and all life insurances and all this. The same concept. Yeah. But what happens if it's going to be the really bad man? He's in his 50s, right? And she's in her 50s. So now it's a 50-50 chance, right? First of all, it could be that she's going to die first, right? And second of all, and also until he gets the money, it could be another 20, 30 years. So maybe now he'll only give her 10,000 or 8,000, whatever it is for the 26. So it all depends. So here she went and she sold it to her husband. Right, the dowry and her ketubah ben nichrin. So the question is, does she still have ketubah ben nichrin or not? Which means, even though she right now came and she sold it, do you still say that there's still a concept of the zechut of her children? That if she dies b'chayei bala, right, and then afterwards the husband dies, still her children get this ketubah? Or do you say no? That the second that she sold it, she lost her rights for ketubah ben nichrin? That is the question of the Gemara. So Elmaleh, Rabbi comes and says, says 1 second, why are you only asking the case of selling? Remember, here we're talking about that she sold her ketubah to her husband in order that afterwards the husband doesn't have to give her a ketubah. Why don't we just say, what about mochelet? What if she's mochelet on ketubata? Right? Does she lose the rights? I mean, she forgives on it, right? Yeah, she doesn't need it. She wants to show her what? I have more money than you. So what does she say? Don't give me a ketubah. You think I need your money? Don't give me a ketubah. So now the question is, does she lose out on the ketubah ben nichrin or not? So Elmaleh, so Rabbi Yamar Saba comes and tells Rabba, it's a kal v'chomer. Hashta mocheret kami baile. If you're going to come and you're going to ask me the question to do with if she sold it, and you still have a doubt whether the children get ketubah ben nichrin or not, the afa gavdi kalamei zuze ansua. But even though you could say that she was forced because of money, meaning at the end of the day she was tight for cash. She needed money. Right, the husband only gives her an allowance, right? $10 a week or whatever it was, right? $100 a week. Yeah, it's it's the allowance that he gives her. But the truth is, he has to give it according to her money. Remember that, right? According to his money, the allowance that she gets is according to his money. For example, if he's rich, right, she could tell him, instead of me ironing, bring in a maid. She has to iron, right? If he's rich, she could tell him, instead of me cleaning the house, bring in a maid. She cleans the house. Right? Not that she doesn't have to do anything. She still has to do something, because we're going to learn in Ketubot that the woman always has to be busy. Because if not, if a person's not busy, what happens? They do averot. When people are what does it mean? When people are not doing anything, that's when you have to have them. That's why children, boys and children, they always have to make sure that even though they're on vacation for 2.5 months during the summer, right? Which I think is I think it's politics that only because of camps, right, that they were able to force that it doesn't make sense. Right, that you have children that are 2.5 months off. I think the camps have so much money involved. They come and they told the schools, it's either you guys do it, or if not, there's big problems. But it doesn't make sense. Why? Because then what happens is you have a child, and there's no school, there's no camp, there's no this, and all of a sudden they're bored. And now they do averot. And then you ask yourself, well, why are they doing averot? Well, chacham, Obviously, if they're bored, they're going to be doing avirot. So you have to have structure. Every single day, shachrit. Every single day, learning. Every single day, sports. Every single day, this. Why? In order that they're not going to have batala, because shabatala miviya lidei she'amu, mishe'amu miviya lidei chet. Remember that, right? So what happens now, though? Right? He comes and he says, or even over there, you could say that she was tight for cash, and that's why she had to celebrate. So so it's as if that they're hitting them 100 times in order to actually come, right? And they're forcing her to come and to be vater. And still you have a doubt whether be'emet it's completely annulled or not. So mochelet mibai. So therefore you have a doubt by mochelet. Mochelet, she didn't need to do it, right? So why is she doing it? From her own accord. The fact that she's doing it on her own accord, so therefore for sure you're going to say kavachomer that for sure that she's going to lose it out. Right? Why? Because, maybe the other one, you're going to say, listen, she was forced. So really, they mentioned she still wants her bit of ketubah b'nindichrin, but there's nothing else what to do. But here, she's mochelet. So kavachomer that she should actually come and not get it, or her children shouldn't get it. So Amar Rabba comes and he says, Pshita li, mocheret ketubata la'acherim, yesh ketubah b'nindichrin. If she sold it to a third party, to somebody else, for sure, she still gets ketubah b'nindichrin.
Who's going to pay for it?
The husband.
The husband can up it. Why?
Why am I going to say that the boys are not going to lose out the benin dichrin? Because even though the ikara, the shibud is still on the husband, right? That if he's going to divorce her, if he's going to die, so he has to pay back the ketubah, right? But he says, right? And also she's actually selling this and everything. Zuze ansua, but she was forced because of money, right? So therefore, again, basically, since she was strapped for cash, it wasn't that she was mevateret. Really, she wants the ketubah benin dichrin. But she had no other choice. So she's a force majeure, you know what I'm saying? She's on another choice. So she sold it. So therefore, that's what happens. Mochelet ketubata leba'ala. However, though, right, for sure, if she's mochelet ketubata for her husband, meaning that she's forgiving it to the husband, en la ketubah benin dichrin. My tama, what's the reasoning? Achule achilta, because she was mochelet. So therefore, Rava comes and he gives you two halachot, which are the two extremes. Mochelet la'acherim. If she sells it to other people, for sure that she does still get the ketubah b'nindichrin for her male children. Then if she's mochelet to her husband, for sure she does not get ketubah b'nindichrin. So now the question is, what about to her husband? And that's why the Gemara is going to say again, by Rava mochelet ketubah leba'ala. What happens now when she sells the ketubah to her husband, not to somebody else, to her husband? Do you say that it's considered that she sold it to other people and therefore the children still get ketuvah benin dichrin? Or maybe maybe it's like that she's forgiving it to her husband. So says the Gemara, the Pashta, after he asked the question, he answered the question. It's considered that he sold it to other people and therefore there's still ketuvah benin dichrin. So says the Gemara, Mativ Ravin comes and he asks the following question. Meta. Right? What happens right now? A woman that her husband went to Medinat Hayam. We're going back to Yevamot. Right? So a woman, her husband goes to Medinat Hayam, and then they come and they say that he died. Right? So they come back, he died. Right? They have good news. They have bad news for her. Right? That the husband died. Depends on the case. Yeah. So what happened is that she gets married. Right? She got married through one witness, and then what happens? The dead person, Baharuk Biraglav. Right? He comes in. All of a sudden, he comes in. And he says, Frecha, what did you just do? Yeah, what did you just do? So we already said, if you remember, she doesn't get the ketubah, right? She doesn't get the ketubah from who? From neither husband, right? You remember? The children are mamzerim, she loses everything, right? Everything. Okay, fine, no problem. So now what happens now, v'meta? What happens now if she dies? So en yorshin shel zeh, ven yorshin shel zeh, yorshin ketubata. So nobody gets a ketubah. So v'avilas, we ask, ketubata ma'avita. What are you talking about? There's ketubah. There's no ketubah. You just said that if a woman came and she got married the second time around on the smach, on the basis that on the one witness that the husband died, and now the husband came back, she gets no ketubah. So what do you mean then afterwards when it says that when she dies, nobody gets her ketubah? What do you mean nobody gets her ketubah? There's no ketubah, but there's no ketubah also for the first husband. There's no ketubah from any husband. Because since she went and she got married with only one witness to the second husband, so now she lost out on both of them. She completely lost out. Comes and he says like this, ketubata mayavita. So he says, so what are you going to do with the ketubah? So Amar of Papa says, ketuvat benin dichrin. We're talking about the ketuvat benin dichrin. So says the Gemara, why? So he comes and he says, so you see from here that Rav Papa comes and he says that we're talking about the ketubah benin dichrin. We're not talking about the regular ketubah. Because you're right, the regular ketubah, she doesn't get. She lost out on her ketubah. The Ketubah b'nichrin we were talking about there. And that's what we're talking about there over there, that en yoshin shazeh and yoshin shazeh get the Ketubah b'nichrin, meaning that the regular Ketubah, for sure, she doesn't get. We're talking about even the Ketubah b'nichrin, she doesn't get. So says the Gemara, now why? At the end of the day, why are you going to come and you're going to tell me, right, that the Mocheret Ketubata is why is you going to lose it out? We're going to say the Yetzirah was an asata. Meaning, just like before you went and you said that the money was force majeure and that she was strapped for cash and that's why she went and she sold the Ketubah b'nichrin. Here, the Yetzirah. Imagine a woman comes and she says, what? She's going to be left behind a widow for the rest of her life. She's going, so the Yitzhak comes in her and says, no, you're right. We have one witness. Go get married. Do this. It's smart. Go. So that's the Yitzhak did it. So answers the Gemara, Hatam knasau de kansur rabanan. There it was a knas, meaning that the rabbis gave a knas to the woman in order to make sure that, listen, we give you a leniency that you're allowed to take the one witness and go get married, but make sure that it's 100% correct. Meaning they don't want her to come and start jumping and say, there's one witness. Yeah. Right? Sometimes they come and they ask, is it kosher? Well, go ask. So they come to the caterer. No, the food's kosher. Yeah, that's it. The rabbi. Yeah, look, the rabbi. Because it says kosher, so that's it. You don't need anything else. It says, that's all. That's all you need. But why don't you check? Check. No. Same thing here. She's going to say, right? So, yeah, exactly. Everything. So they believed. So they say, no, knas. It was a knas. What's a knas? The knas was, right? So exactly. You have to make sure if it was before Pesach or after Pesach.
No, yeah.
I know. Yeah? Because he says, right? What does that mean? He comes and he says, right? It's a knas. What is the knas? We want to make sure that she's checking well the ed to make sure that everything's okay. So Yati Rabbi Malchanina Kamed Rav Chasta. Rabbi Malchanina was coming in front of Rav Chasta. Yati Kamar Nishmed Rabbi Lazar. He said in front of Rabbi Lazar, Mochelet ketubata lebaala en la mezonot. Do you know that a woman that comes and she's mochelet or ketubah to the husband, she doesn't get mezunot when she becomes a widow as well, because she forgave it, right? Why? Because almanani zonim nise bala is part of the Tanai ketubah. It's part of a condition of the ketubah. If she came and she forgave the ketubah, so she doesn't get mezunot as well. So imagine she came and she forgave the husband for the ketubah. Now the husband dies. She's supposed to get money, right? Allowances for money for food from the property of the husband. Nothing. Why? So Elmaleh, the inheritance. Elmaleh, so Chasta comes and he tells him, if you wouldn't have told me this in the name of Rabbi Elazar, in the name of a great person, I would have told you, it's a pasuk in Mishleh, which means if you come and somebody does you a favor, and then you come and you give them, and you are kfutava. So after doing you a favor, you come and you pay them back negatively for something positive that they do. And by the way, you should know, this is one of the biggest yetzeras that there is. They always say about the Gaon Vilna that after he used to do a favor to somebody, he used to give them small rocks. So they tell him, why are you giving me a small rock? He said, because if you're already going to throw rocks at me, at least to make them small so that way I don't get hurt. Because if they're going to be big, right, it's going to have a bigger effect. So I might as well, small rocks, small pebbles. So at least you're throwing me. Why? Because people have that tendency. You do me a favor, they don't want the favor. So what happens? They want, so Kilu, I don't know you anything. So what? I was like, oh, you did me a favor, you have to do it anyway. I was doing you a favor. Kilu, and that's why I said it, and I'll say it hundreds of times. Right? The Volbe says, Shalom Bayit is based upon Hakarat Tov. Shalom Bayit is Hakarat Tov. I don't understand. A woman that came and that for so many years, she helped you out in everything during the good times, during the bad times. She cooked for you. She cleaned for you. She did the laundry for you. She grew up your children. She had children. She had all these things, right? And now all of a sudden you're going to come and you're going to throw her out like a pair of shoes, right? You're going to come and say, no, nowadays, refund. Refund, give it back. That's it. Says Rav Volbe, Shalom Bayit is based upon Hakarat Tov. Right? Hakarat Tov. What does that mean? How could it be you're going to come and you're going to, right, say something? Look at the good. But what happens? What happens is the same thing. That all of a sudden people get divorced. And it's not that they just say, listen, all of a sudden the love just, dizzled out. And then that's it. And each one goes on their way. All of a sudden become the biggest of enemies. And you say to yourself, why? Right? Who loses out? Right? Everybody. The children, they themselves. Who gains? The lawyers. right? But why? Because they become the biggest enemies, right? And why the biggest enemies? Because all of a sudden, no, look, and he wanted to, but I should get this, and he should get that, and she should get that, and he should get that, and then they fight like cats and dogs. And what are you doing? Use your brains, right? Who's losing? You, your children, everyone else. Who's gaining? Them. They're happy. The lawyers are happy. Don't worry about it. Yeah? So what are you doing? Let's just an each. Right? So he comes and he says here, right? He says, if you're going to do bad after doing something good, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to do nothing bad will ever stop from his house.
Curse.
Which means that it's a curse from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I don't understand. The guy did you a favor. Now you're going to... So here you see the same thing. A woman came and she did a tovah to the husband. She went and she forgave her ketubah to her husband. She does a tovah. Afterwards, she's going to lose out. And when she becomes a widow, now she's not going to be able to get parnasah. She did a tovah to the husband. Now she's going to get something negative. So therefore, he comes and he says, if it wasn't for the fact that he said it in the name of a big rabbi, this is what I would have said. Because I said that this is terrible. Right? It doesn't make sense that it could be that a woman will come and lose her ketubah just because of such a thing. Fine. Next, another a story to do with the zechut of kivura of a woman. Right? So this is to do with burying a woman. Okay? He comes and he says like this. Yativ Rab Nachman v'Ula v'Avivi bar Rav Papi. So Rav Nachman and Ula v'Avivi bar Rav Papi were sitting and they were saying, Yativ Rav Chia bar Ami kabayu. Rav Chia bar Ami was sitting there. Ata, and he went and he said, Ahu gavra d'shiva arusato. There was somebody that his arusa passed away. Now he wanted to find out that he's obligated to actually bury her or not. This is arusa, not a nesua. So there's the first stage of marriage. Remember that between the Rusim and Nesuim there was 1 year. So his fiancée passed away. Yeah, so she passed away. Now the question is, does he have to bury her or not? So Amri Lei, so they went and they said, Zikvar, go bury her. Why? Or havla ketubata, or give her a ketubah. So you have the choice. It's either you bury her or you give her the ketubah. Yeah, that's what it is. So Amar lehu Rav Chia comes and he says, Tanina, we already learned it. Ishto arusa lo onen velo mitamela velo vechenu hi lo onen velo mitamela lo meta en yorsha metu go ketubata. Says 1 second. It's a mifurash. What did we learn? We learned in a Mishnah, right? There's actually a Braita. The Braita says if the arusa passes away, so therefore he does not become an onen. So the guy does not become an onen, right? Not only that, if he's a kohen, he cannot become tameh for her. The same halacha would apply to the arus. If the arus dies, meaning that the man now dies, the groom dies, he lo onenet, she doesn't become an onenet, and she doesn't become, right, tameh, which means she's not obligated to become tameh to him, right? Okay, obviously here we're not talking about kohen, because anyway, okay, the kohenot are not obligated, but he just says, meta, if she dies, ena yorsha, he doesn't yoresh ota. The metu, but if he dies, she does get a ketubah. So therefore, because usually the husband inherits the wife, but here it's not really the 100% wife yet; it's only a rusa. So he doesn't inherit her, but she does collect the ketubah. So it's mevurash. Tama the metu. The reason why is because he died. Hametahi. But if she dies, en la ketubah, she doesn't get a ketubah. So what are you talking about now that she should get a ketubah? She shouldn't get a ketubah. So says my time. What's the reasoning why be'emet man is obligated in burying his arusa? Right? So he comes and he says, Amar Voshaya, she'enani koreba, right? He comes and he says, because I'm not going to read by the arusa, lechshetinasi le'acher titli ma shekatuv lechi. Because basically in the nusacha the ketubah, it's written that when you get married to somebody else, you're going to take that which is written in the ketubah, which means that the interpretation of these words is that this chov is only going to be chal only when she's going to be mitalmen or mitgaresh, which means when she gets divorced or she gets widowed, right? And then she's permitted to get married to somebody else. But as long as she's under him, right? Which means that now she died or whatever it is, so he's not obligated to anything. So it comes out that if right now she died, right, the husband didn't gain anything from the chova ketubah because he wasn't chayav anything. So since he didn't receive anything, so therefore there's no chova to bury her. So that's what we're saying. There's no obligation for him to bury his arusa. Okay, that's what the Gemara is saying. Kiyat Rabin, package deal. Yeah? He says, Kiyat Rabin, when Rabin came, he comes and he says, Kiyat Rabin, Amar Reshakish. So when Rabin came, he said the name of Reshakish, Arusa Shemeta, En La Ketubah. So when Arusa that dies, there's no Ketubah. So Amaleh Abaye comes and he says, Zilu Amnile, go and tell Rabin, Ungimel Ubet, 53b. Shekila Tivutach, Shadia Chizre. What does that mean? We don't need your tovot that you're teaching us these things, right? Go take it and throw it on the thorns, basically. It means we don't need what you're telling us. You understand? Because already Rav Oshaya already told this in Bavel, which means that an arusa that dies, she does not. There's no obligation that the husband buries her because there's no ketubah in the fact that it's written. So because that, we don't need your tovot, meaning that you come and you give me a chidush. I don't need a chidush. I already learned it. I don't need it anymore. You understand? Very good. So says the Gemara, benan nukvan, female girls. Right, that I'm going to have from you, right? They are going to be living in the house and they're going to get fed from the property. Okay, so that's what's written in the ketubah as well, or one of the Tanai ketubah. So Rav Tani adeti lachan liguvrim, right? So Rav taught that in the Mishnah was written until they are taken by men. The Levi Tani Belevi ad girsa adeti bagran, until they become bogerets. Right? Remember, bogerets is at the age of 12 and a half. Until they're taken by men, it all depends. Now, even in the olden days, even though they used to get married much earlier, meaning we're not talking about like nowadays that it's going to be, between, 18 to 22 or 24 or whatever it is. It depends if they're very young or they're old maids or this or all these things. But bogerets was 12 and a half. There's a big difference there, between them. But even in the olden days, right, they would still get married young, but there was a difference. So says the Gemara, le Rav, according to Rav, that he said that what adati lachan leguvrim, the bagad, even though she became a bogeret, still she's going to get money, right? She's going to get fed. The Levi, afagav the insiv, and Levi, even though she got married, even though it was before the bogeret, what's going on? Ela bagar velo insiv. If she became a bogeret and she did not get married, remember, bogeret is 12 and a half, and she did not get married, or insiv velo bagar, or she got married, even though she was not a bogeret yet. So let's say she got married, she was at the age of 12. So she's still not able to get it. She's still nara. But at the end of the day, she got married. So what happens? Nobody argues that she lost out on getting the parnasa. That means whether it was that she became a bogeret, even though she didn't get married, or she got married, even though she's not a bogeret, meaning one of the two. It's already either she's 12 and a half and not married, or she's married, even though she's not 12 and a half, no more parnasa. She doesn't take from the property anything. When is a machloket? Ba'arusa. If she becomes an arusa, right, which means that she was engaged, but she was still not a bogeret. So let's say she's 12 years old, right? Bidyu 12 years old, and then she gets engaged. Now she still wasn't taken by the husband; she's still living in the father's property, right? But she's still not a bogeret. So that is going to be the machloke between them. Tana Levi b'matiti, also Levi taught it also in the Mishnah. When we're talking about atiti bagram v'yimtez imnihem v'yasvan, right, where it says over here that the banot, the girls, are going to be zochot that they take from the properties of the fathers that they died ad tibagran, until they become bogerets, and until it comes their time to get married. Which means that the halacha is that again, that even though we just said that it's 12 months, right? Once it gets the 12 months, even though she doesn't get married, the husband still has to pay for it. You remember that was the beginning of Ketubot. You remember? There's a 12-month period. What happens now? It comes to 12 months, and he didn't get married to her. He comes and he says, let's push it off for another month. Right? Why? I've got exams, whatever it is. So what happens? During that month, right, he has to pay for the parnasa. Doesn't come from the father. The husband now has to start supporting. Okay? So this writer is coming and saying that even Levi is going to be modeh, that the daughter that comes and that she gets married, she loses out, but that's only if she got married, right? But if it was only nitarsa, so then no, she still gets parnasa. So says the Gemara, the tarte. He comes and he says, we need both of them. We know we need whether it's bogeret or nisuin in order to lose it out. But rather, or shetibagran, or it's or. It's not both. It's not that she needs to be a bogeret and get married. It's either or. Either she becomes a bogeret, or it's already the time that she gets married. Either or. So it says the Gemara, ketanai. Really, behemet, this is actually going to be a machloket tanaim. Why is it a machloket tanaim? This machloket Rav and Levi is a machloket tanaim. Ad matai habat nizonet. Until when does a girl get parnasa that gets mizonot? Ad sheteares, until she becomes an erusa. Rabbi Elazar says until she becomes a bogeret. So it comes out that Rav holds like the Tanakama, right? That a bat that the second that she becomes an erusa, she loses out, and Levi holds like Rabbi Elazar that she gets it until she gets married or she becomes a bogeret. So Tani Rav Yosef ad yehevyan. He comes and he says it's not until erusim, it's until nisuim. Because when it says the Yavyan, it's Havaya, it's full marriage. So therefore, not because she got engaged, that's it. The brothers, like they stopped giving her parnasa. and until she actually gets married. So Ibai Lehu, so they ask the question, Havaya de Rusin or Havaya de Nisuin? 1 second. When you say Havaya, Kitiyeh, right, which is Havaya, or is that Havaya of Erusin or Nisuin? Maybe it's also that's already the first stage of marriage, which is already going to be Erusin. Maybe it's not Nisuin. So it says, I'm going to take what you're right. It's actually a very good question. We're not sure whether it's going to be Havaya, Verusin, or Nisuin. For sure, it has to be Havaya, but the question is, what type of marriage? Is it the first stage of marriage or a second stage of marriage? Remember, nowadays, we do both stages at the same time. But in the olden days, it was two separate stages. It was stage 1, which was the Kiddushin, and then a year later, it was the stage 2, which was the Nisuin.
But he didn't do both, no?
Yeah. Elmaleh Rav Chasta le Rav Yosef. Says Rav Chasta to Rav Yosef. Nishemia lecha mined Rav Yehuda. Did you ever hear from Rav Yehuda with whether an arusa has mezonot or ela mezonot? Elmaleh, he says, Mishma lo shmiya li. I didn't hear this in the name of Rav Yehuda. Ela misvara letla. But I have a svara. I didn't hear from Rav Yehuda. You're right. I didn't hear anything from Rav Yehuda, but from logic, I say that she doesn't get it. Kevan dirsa, because once right now he already was me'aresota, lo nichale de titazil. It's not going to be good, right? That she's going to become mitbazeh and start, asking for parnasah. So therefore, I'm going to say that even if that, he would do it even if he's not really obligated to do this, right? Which means that the fact that the Chachamim actually made it, because at the end of the day, he's not going to want that she's going to be married. At the end of the day, it's his arusa. So imagine right now he's going to find out that his arusa is coming and collecting money on the doors because she doesn't have parnasah. He would do it just because of that. So Elmaleh, he says, if you didn't hear it, I would say the opposite. She does get parnasah. Why? Because since at the end of the day, it's not for sure that he's going to get married to her. So lo shadi zuzi bichte, which means at the end of the day, it's only the rusin. The rusin is not the nisuin. So that means it's only the first stage. So it's all the more so nowadays, right? That means, what does that mean? At the end of the day, he's not going to get married to her. So the fact that he's not going to waste the money until afterwards. Afterwards, he would waste some money. But on a doubt, he's going to throw the money out in the garbage. He wouldn't do it. So because of that, he wouldn't give her parnasah until Be'emet, he's 100% married. The other people come and they say, it was the opposite. Elmaleh, Rabbi Yosef comes and he tells Rav Chasta, Mishma lo shmiya, I didn't hear it. But misvara itla, but misvara, he should get it. Why? But since he's not with her, lo shad izuzu bichte. So Elmaleh comes and he said the opposite way around. If you didn't hear him, misvara, I would say, she doesn't get it. Because once he got engaged to her, right? It's not good that she's going to become, embarrassed. So therefore, he would actually come and he would give it to her, right? Because even though he's not obligated to do it, in order that she shouldn't get embarrassed. So basically, the Ika Damri was a flip of the exact opposite of what we just said beforehand, right? Which each of the svarot. Siman de Gavre. The siman to remember, right? All the Amoraim that we just mentioned in the Sifekot that we spoke about is Shak Zara, which means Shak, Shin is Rav Shashat, Kuf is Resh Lakish, right? Zayin is Abilazar, Resh is Rava, Pei is Rav Papa. Okay, and what are the 5 Sifekot, right? Which we're going to bring down right now. Miana, Yivama, Shniya, Arusa, Vanusa. These are 5 different Sifekot, 5 different doubts. Okay, so let's start. Bao Minem Rav Shashat. So this is the first one, the Shin for Rav Shashat. Mema'enet. We're talking about a mema'enet. Remember, who is a mema'enet? A girl that who could do miyum? A girl that she was a ktana, and who got her married? Very good. Thank you, doctor. The mother or the brother got her married off, right? So therefore, she could renounce the marriage. She could do mi'un. So mema'enet. Yesh la mezonot or en la mezonot. Does she get mezonot from the property of her father until she gets bogeret, right? Or not? Which means this. The mother or the brother got her married off. She does miyun. She says, I can't stand this guy. Boom. She goes back to the father's house. Does she get parnasah or not? Does she get mezonot or not? So Elmaleh Rav Shashat. Rav Shashat comes and he says, we learned it. Almana bevet avia, right? Ugrusha bevet avia. Whether we're talking about an almana, right, bevet avia, which means that she was still in a rusa, or a grusha bevet avia, v'shomeret yavam, or a shomeret yavam, bevet avia, yesh la mezonot. She gets mezonot. Rabbi Yehuda says, Oda bevet avia yesh la mezonot. If she's still in the father's house, she gets mezonot. But if not, then she doesn't get mezonot. So you see from here, Rabbi Yehuda in Tanakama. Rabbi Yehuda bemet is a Tanakama. Because Rabbi Yehuda comes and Tanakama said the exact same thing. That if one of these 3 cases was the Oda bevet avia, whether it's Arusa, she gets Parnasah, she gets Mizonot. So therefore, right, why would she lose it? So Elalav mema'enet ikebeno. So the machloket between Rabbi Yehuda and Tanakama is mema'enet. The Tanakama Sava, because Tanakama holds that mema'enet itla, she does get mezonot, and Rabbi Yehuda says that she doesn't get it, right? Which means that when Rabbi Yehuda comes and it says ota bevet avia, she gets mezonot, that's a kavanah that she never left the father's house. But if she did leave the father's house once, she doesn't get it again. So that was a pshat in the words of Rabbi Yehuda. That's why according to Rabbi Yehuda, mema'enet does not get parnasa. Okay, so therefore it comes out, it's a machloket between Rabbi Yehuda and Tanakama. Does mema'enet, when she goes back to her father's house, does she get mezonot or not? Machloket Tanakama and Rabbi Yehuda. This is a kuf, right? So Resh Lakish comes and he says, Bat Yevama, the daughter of a Yevama, which means that a person comes and he gets married to Yevimto, and he gets a daughter, not a son, a daughter, and then he dies. Yesh la mezonot or en la mezonot? Does she get parnasa from the Niksei Avia Hamet, right? From Gush Zayavam or not? So says the Gemara, Kevin Damarmor, what's the safek? Well, why wouldn't she get it? So he says, Kevin Damarmor, but since the Mishnah Yevamot said, Ketubatal Niksei Bala Rishon, her ketubah is on the properties of the first husband. So letla, so she doesn't get it. Or Dilmar, maybe given the itla, if she would have got it from the Rishon, takinu la banan sheni. Let's say what happens if there's no ketubah from the first husband. So the second husband is obligated to give a ketubah. So therefore you would get it. So itla, she does get it. Teiku. We don't have the answer. One more time, right? A man passes away without children. His wife gets married to the brother, and now they have a daughter, and now the brother dies. Okay, so now the question is, this daughter, does she get parnasa from the properties of the father or not? Does she get mezonot or not? So the Gemara says, what's the safek? So it's very simple. We always said that when the yavam does yibum to zivimto, the ketubah is on the first husband. So since the ketubah is on the first husband, right? So therefore, this daughter didn't come from the first husband. The daughter came from the second husband. So for she shouldn't get parnasa, mezonot. Or do you say no? But what happens if she didn't have a ketubah from the first husband? So the rabbi is instituted that she doesn't have a ketubah from the first husband. She does get a ketubah from the yavam, from the second husband. So therefore, she should get mezonot because of the second husband. So maybe she should get mezonot. Answers the Gemara, teiku. We don't know. We don't have the answer. We don't know. Does she get mezonot or not? We don't have an answer. Third one, Rabbi Elazar. This was a zayin from Zara, right? So the zayin, Rabbi Elazar, bat shniya. Remember, we're talking about a daughter to shniya la arayot. Remember that there was the arayot, which is the first category of prohibited relations, and then there's second category of prohibited relations. So, for example, if you remember what the mother-in-law was first category, but the mother of the mother-in-law, but the mother of the mother-in-law, right? For example, so that's going to be shniyot la arayot, right? Or if you were going downwards, you remember it was the daughter of your wife. But then I think it was like the granddaughter or the great-granddaughter. Right? Something like it was always like the second category. So therefore, we had the daughter of a shniya la arayot, which means a person came and he got married to a darga sheniya. Right? So here it says, Kigon emavi vo'emimo, right? Okay, yes. So therefore, it says, Mina Torah, it's prohibited, but it was only asur midrabanan. And now what happens is he has a girl, and then he dies. Yesh la mezonot or no mezonot? Does she get mezonot or not? From the top, it says, Kevin the illa ketubah, since she does not get ketubah, lela mezonot, she doesn't get mezonot. Or Dilmar, maybe ima de abda isura, the mother did an isur. So comes to Rabbanan. So the rabbis made a knas in order that the mother loses out on the ketubah, but she did an isur. But the girl, the bat, she didn't do any isur. They love the isura. So look at, so they didn't give a knas to the daughter. What did the daughter do wrong? The daughter was born. What did she do wrong? Nothing. So Teiku, we do not have an answer whether she gets a ketubah or not, whether she gets mizunot or not, because we do not know. And Bezrat Hashem, we continue.